event I'm about to tell you about took place just this Saturday, March 4th at Apex Rehab Center and was witnessed by a wonderful nurse there named Austin. Albert is a 63-year-old man with intellectual disabilities. He has cancer, heart failure, and many other health conditions. To make things worse, he is recovering from a recent stroke. Other than a half-brother, Albert has no family or support in his life. The Valley Ride Access bus is a transportation service offered to the elderly and disabled. They help get folks to and from places like stores and medical appointments, and it's a great service for the community. Linda was the name of the bus driver on Saturday. She openly lied in a short video clip you will see at the end of this. We know for a fact what she said, and there is a witness in addition to my brother. Linda showed up to take Albert home after a month of rehab for his stroke. He is very weak and can only and barely walk using a walker. He had a garbage bag, a brand new garbage bag that I brought him to fill up his clothes. It was about a third full with his clean clothes, and then he had a small bag that this facility gave him that had his dirty clothes, both of which could have easily gone under the empty seats or under his seat, and you can see in the photos that this is true. It was soft, mushy clothing. We took all of his hard stuff home with him. All of this was clothes. There were a few cans of pop. He could have easily left those, but it was just clothing. The nurse helping Albert to the bus was met with an immediate and nonsensical, rude refusal to let Albert take his clothes in the bags on the bus. The bus, which was entirely empty, other than Albert, and had nothing but room for his clothes. She said, quote, "That cannot go on the bus, it's too dangerous." What was dangerous? I went to the Valley Ride site, and the do's and don'ts and what you can take on board, it doesn't say anything about putting bags under your seats. You can't do that. And in fact, when I first called in, the incompetent staff person told me that that was true, that they could go under the seat. The nurse had to argue and argue with Linda, but she refused. At one point, trying to get Linda to understand common sense, the nurse asked, if his clothes were in a backpack, would you let it go on? Linda said yes. So this cold, heartless person had a problem with the type of luggage Albert was using? I guess an intellectually disabled man on a small fixed income should have Samsonite to ride on Access bus. Such high standards for the disabled. Albert called me frantic, his half-brother, to tell me she was refusing to let him on. He was very upset, as was the nurse. Albert has very severe issues letting his property out of his sight because he's been taken advantage of so many times in his life, and it's been drilled into him not to let things out of his sight. This was a big deal to him. This comes after a horrible month of rehab, the worst week so far of health issues, insurance problems, medical equipment not showing up at his home, and now this, clothing, was dangerous? I asked him to let me talk to Linda. I could hear her perfectly, and she said in a very rude voice and tone, "I'm not talking to anyone, I'm leaving. Are you getting on or staying here?" She is saying this to a patient being discharged from a medical center who can barely walk. The nurse said she was mean and was making no sense. So Albert's only items had to be left at the nursing center. His clothes were too dangerous in that garbage bag. The nurse was amazed by how mean and stunted Linda was, and she actually finally said in a condescending tone to the nurse, "Well, if he can carry it himself, then he can take it." She actually said that. This hateful woman said that sentence to a weak, disabled man leaning on a walker. She didn't want to touch his disgusting new garbage bag. She has such high standards, clearly. Who the heck hired this person? No matter what BS Linda and the rude, argumentative staff person I had to deal with at Valley Ride say to, after the fact, try to justify this cruel abuse of a disabled senior, the driver and the staff and I talked with are a disgrace to otherwise wonderful service of Valley Ride. I mean, really a disgrace. I then got into a series of phone calls with a severely incompetent phone service person at Valley Ride. I believe her name was Rebecca. Some of her great argumentative quotes include, "No matter when you call back," or this is a quote, "No matter when you call back, we will not tell you the name of her supervisor." I had to ask over and over again. They refused to tell me. "I'm sorry, but I'm pretty sure Valley Ride is funded by city dollars, my dollars. And she tells me I can't ask for the name of a supervisor? Is she nuts?" Not one time did Rebecca apologize or even begin to show any empathy for Albert. She seemed almost proud of Linda for abusing Albert. She told me over and over that basically nothing was going to get done with me calling, and I had no business calling back. Is she the director of Valley Ride? I don't think so. This dismissive employee could have cared less about this abusive driver. Another great back and forth was that I asked her to call the nurse to hear the witness to what Linda had done to him. The staff person was rude once again and said, "Why would I call to talk to a nurse? I don't need to do that." So incompetent. On one hand, she's telling me she's writing down the claim so she can write down the report. And on the other hand, she has no interest in hearing what happened from the only witness. Are you kidding me? So I guess the point here, everybody, is if there's abuse by a driver, Valley Ride staff have zero interest in finding out what happened. Is this really their policy? As far as I'm concerned, both staff should go, but that driver has to go. Linda was also condescending in her hello when she dropped Albert off to my wife. He was very upset about his clothes being taken away from him. I was fortunate enough to pass Linda on Albert Street. She lied right to my face about what she had said. She had kind of an ice-cold look on her face, very unsettling that she's allowed near vulnerable populations. This is a cruel, abusive person who clearly lacks the compassion and intellect to be anywhere near a bus or a disabled person. This added so much stress to our lives on the end of a bad week. All of this because Linda has a disdain for the disabled, poor people who do not have the luggage she prefers. Perhaps she's just a cold-hearted disdain for all clients of Valley Ride. Either way, it's unforgivable. I will be spreading the word, talking to attorneys this week, and we got to make sure people like this are never allowed near our vulnerable citizens in Boise. And Valley Ride has a lot to answer for. Now you can watch the clip of this abusive woman lie right to my face, and she gets a little smirk right at the end. I guess she thinks her abuse is funny. We don't. You told a disabled man if he can carry his clothes, he can get in a van that's for disabled people?
I'm sorry, what?
You, according to the nurses at the rehab center, you told him if he could lift it into the van himself, he could have it.
No, that's not what I said.
And that you have an empty van.
That's not what I said.